I couldn't read. Yeah, yeah.
In secondary school?
Yeah, secondary school, couldn't read properly. Couldn't read. I got diagnosed with epilepsy. It's called idiopathic epilepsy. So essentially, they don't really know what triggers it. They suspect it could be a few things, and you might need to change some of your lifestyle. So essentially, I've got one chemical in my brain that is not there that basically isn't bad. And I think this is where my faith was tested as well, and maybe where my relationship kind of with God kind of took a backseat. So I suffered retrograde amnesia. I couldn't remember the last 2 years of my life, but I had a severe one, and I caught my neck in between, so my desk and the wall in between it like this. So I caught my neck and I was seizing there. So I woke up in hospital, familiar thing of waking up in hospital, and I couldn't feel my legs. And I actually did a blog post about mental health, and it was called A Letter to Depression.
Hello and welcome to Not Another Money Podcast. Why is it called Not Another Money Podcast, you may be wondering? It's because this is not your typical money show. Get ready for real money conversations and lessons, expert insights from some of our very special guests, and hear some really inspiring stories from everyday people. On this podcast, you're going to learn how to earn more, how to spend less, how to grow the difference, and most importantly, live your best financial life. Hi Lawrence, welcome to Not Another Money Podcast. Thank you so much for being on the show. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you, and thanks for having me on, man. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, good. Okay, so for the guys that don't know who you are, tell them a little bit about Lawrence and what it is that you do.
Okay, so as Toddy said, my name is Lawrence Tijjani, and I'm the founder of A Guy CIC, and also happy to host. As you can tell, I do quite a lot of things. Happy to Host is a professional development company. We work with schools and colleges across the UK, teaching them how to use education in the classroom, essentially. And Just a Guy is a non-profit that works with young people from underserved communities to help empower them and actually drive their own social mobility. So both of them are quite close to my heart as being a former teacher as well.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, you didn't throw that into there, but yeah, also a former head of, was it head of,
Head of faculty. Yeah, head of faculty, yeah.
well,
Yeah, former head of faculty. Seems like a long time ago.
It was a lifetime ago.
Yeah, it was. And shout out to all the teachers. It's World Teachers Day today. So
oh, no
we
way. The
appreciate
time of
you.
recording, yeah.
Yeah.
Shout out the teachers because summer holidays, I was like, oh my gosh, like these children are doing my head in. I was so happy for September to come and the kids went back and I was like, oh, teachers, we love you. We appreciate you.
Do you know what's funny? On the 6 weeks holidays, as we're saying goodbye to them, I say, go and be your parents' problem. For 6 weeks. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Literally. And they were a problem. So no, I was so happy when the schools open and I could be the first parent at the gate to drop them boys off. So yeah, no, I appreciate teachers. So yeah, shout out to them. Before we dive into the main heart of today's conversation and what I brought you on here for, what I like to do is a little bit of an icebreaker with my guests. So I like to play a game of Would You Rather. So
okay.
This is the money edition.
Do I have to be quick as well?
No,
Okay,
you can take your time, but what you can't do is change your mind.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
So whatever answer you give, that's it.
Okay. I got you. Ready. I'm ready.
No pressure.
Let's go.
Okay. There's no right or wrong. It's just
thrive under
what you
pressure.
do.
It's okay.
Okay. Cool. So would you rather always be 30 minutes late or always be 30 minutes early?
Always 30 minutes early.
I knew you was going to say that.
Yeah, I can't stand lateness.
You can't
I
really?
can't stand it. No, I can't stand it. I feel like you don't respect people's time.
Oh, no, don't say that. I do. It's just that.
Sorry, I'm just like, I cannot stand lateness.
Really?
It's the biggest argument between me and my wife in terms of being late, yes.
No,
so, yeah,
I
30
can
minutes
imagine.
early. Because you're there, you can have a conversation, go for a walk.
So even like for friends' birthday dinners, you don't mind being 30 minutes early?
It depends who the friend is.
Okay.
Because, yeah, I can work out if they've told me the real time.
Yes.
Yeah. To be fair, a lot of people respect it and tell me the real time because I'm on time.
Okay.
So,
Oh,
yeah, but tell me not to other
that
people.
for a few friends. Yeah, you have to give them the real time and
Yeah.
everybody else the fake time.
Exactly.
Okay, fair. So the next one then is, would you rather have an easy job working for someone else or work for yourself but work incredibly hard?
Work for myself and incredibly hard.
You do it anyway, right?
Yeah, I do it now. So even though I was working for someone before and teaching, but there's just something of creating your own thing, and it's more kind of not because I want to be my own boss, because I have many bosses when you have your own company. But I think the way I look at it is something potentially, God willing, everything goes well, is to pass down to my family and my young boy. So yeah, work hard. Yeah.
Work really hard.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I'd say that as well. Probably, yeah. Work hard. for myself, which is what I do
100%.
now
And
as
again,
well, so.
If Zeke sees me working hard,
It's true.
it's just like something that he knows actually his dad worked hard, so he can't just chill out.
Exactly.
So that's my mindset.
No, it's true, and they learn through observation, don't they, children? So
Absolutely. And that's not saying that if you work from somewhere else, you're not working hard as well.
that's true, yeah. But the question, the actual scenario was, it being an easy job. Yeah, so no, fine. The next one, would you rather win free 1 week cruise, so win a free 1 week cruise to a destination of your choice, or a free weekend stay at any hotel in the world?
Free weekend stay at any hotel in the world.
Oh, why?
I don't like cruises. The idea.
Oh, really?
I like my wife wants to go on one, but the idea of just being at sea just does not sit right with me. Everyone tells me don't fill the cruise ship when it's gone to sea and everything. It's not the point. Like, how do they know they've got enough fuel? What happens is, like, I can swim to survive, but, like, out there, like, no. So,
okay.
Yeah. That's my thing,
Yeah, no, same, to be fair. Cruise, the idea of it and the reality of it probably be very different. I feel like being stuck on this boat with all these random people, doesn't.
Well, they say it's so big you don't even know. But
that's what they say. But I can imagine you start to see the same people again after a few days.
It's not for me.
Okay, so would you rather win £15,000 in £50 notes, so 15k in £50 notes, or win £20,000 in 50p coins?
£20,000 and 50p
Oh,
coins.
you didn't even take time to think of that one.
No.
Money is money, right?
That's what literally I was about to say. Money is money. Don't worry, I will count it. It's all good. We actually even have machines for you to count it. Give me the coins.
Give me the coins. Yeah, literally. I was like, that's a no-brainer. Sorry. Don't say that. My kids, if I give them coins, they're like, no, that's not real money. I'm like, listen, this is money.
Nah.
The 10p's, the 5p's, they don't appreciate it.
You can even give it to me in pennies.
Yeah.
It's okay. All good. Free money is good.
I would go with that for sure. And the last one, would you rather be rich and famous or rich and unknown?
Rich and unknown.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an easy one.
That's kind of my thing, because then, like, one of the things I've always said to myself, if I make it, I'm doing really well, I'd like to go into philanthropy. So like in the background, just helping out different causes that are close to my heart.
Yeah.
So that would go with me. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say that too. Like, fame. I don't think fame is what it's cracked out to be from the stories that you hear.
I even struggle when someone notices me on the street and goes, "Oh yeah, I'll follow you." I'm like,
"Oh, so awkward, right?"
It's awkward. Or when they mention, "Oh, you said this," you're like, "How do you know this?" And you're like, "Oh yeah, I put that out."
I actually posted it on the internet. It's like, okay, fine.
So I struggle with that in a sense. So I just can't imagine the whole fame thing. And like, I'm very much, I put myself out there, but I also flirt with that line of like, I'm tired now of people. Like, I just want my own space. So yeah.
Yeah, and not being able to have that time off from being famous must be really hard. So sometimes you just don't want to be seen and known or spoken to, and 100%. You don't have that choice when you're famous. So I'll go with that. Give me the money. No fame.
Absolutely, all good.
Yeah, and then the last thing I like to do before we jump into the heart of the conversation is I like to invite my guests to take part in the next segment, which is Not Another Money Moment. So this is Not Another Money podcast. I like to ask you to share a significant money moment from your childhood, maybe, or from adulthood, just a significant money memory that stands out to you.
You know, the one that stands out a lot is realizing when we didn't have money.
Like as an adult, realizing
as a child.
Oh, as a child, okay,
realizing we didn't have money as a child.
Yeah.
And that was when bailiffs were knocking on our door.
Oh wow, okay.
And we just had to be silent. And then I remember going to speak to my dad about it, and he was like, "Don't ask no questions." But then I later learned, as you get older, that there is debt and bailiffs, and that took me back to being younger and going, wow, so that's what that was at that moment. And I think that's really kind of made my relationship with money and being as sensible as I can with money as well, not to be in that position of where, someone knocks at your door and you're scared to open it. So that was my earliest kind of intertwined with like younger and being older as well, and just really setting that relationship with money.
That's an interesting one, and I can't even imagine that as a young person, because when you're children you don't really process things as well, or don't understand things as well. But it's so mad that growing up as an adult, you can straight away, when you find out what debt and bailiffs is, refer back to that childhood memory and be like, oh, that's what was happening in that moment. So as a child in that moment, you just thought something's happening, but you just literally
I
didn't
just thought it was
realize what was
musical
happening.
chairs, like statues.
No,
Don't move.
not musical statues. You said musical statues.
Musical statues. Yeah, that's it. Don't move. That's what I thought it was like. You know,
Okay,
like,
yeah.
can we move now?
Yeah. Oh, bless. Okay. No, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. I can't imagine as parents going through that.
Exactly, and that's the thing with my, like, just shout out to my parents in terms of like, we never knew, and they always did the best with with what they had, and I think that's an amazing thing to do that, you know, as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, exactly. All they can do is the best. And I think as we grow up into adulthood and become parents ourselves, you really do appreciate your parents more and realize, oh, wow, they were just young people figuring things out themselves. And you realize, oh, okay, they weren't just these old people. They actually were young people like ourselves. Yeah, just really figuring out life.
I call it the arrogance of the youth. That's what I call it. I think about that a lot in terms of like how arrogant and kind of how I thought I had the world worked out, and like you do not have a clue, a Scooby, you know, and it's kind of almost like falling in love with your parents again. Like you obviously love them, but then you realize how much they did and what they had to do for you to be in the position you are today. So like I always give shout out to my parents and kudos to them, because without them, you know, I wouldn't be where I am today. And that's why I always say to Zeke when I'm changing his nappy, if you dare tell me, that you did it yourself.
No, you telling the baby this.
I'm telling him already.
Bear in mind, he's not even 2 years old.
Yeah, exactly, but I'm already telling him, you know.
No, from now.
I'm telling you, like, you need a solid foundation. I was here.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, thank you for sharing once again. And I guess now just diving into the main heart of the conversation, before we take it deep, it would be good to start with a bit of a backstory so that the audience get to know a little bit more about Lawrence and a younger Lawrence, because this Lawrence today is all sitting there nice and polished and, looking very suave.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm getting better at taking compliments, so thank you. I'll take that.
I know, really. That's what I do. You just have to pause, just say thank you, and that's it.
Exactly.
Don't say anything else. So, no. Now that, you're growing and you've come and settled into adulthood, what was a younger Lawrence like? What was your childhood like? What was it like being a young person growing up in South London? Not for me to pre-tell your story, but obviously we went to college together, so I know you grew up in South, but anything else?
Yeah, so I grew up in Bermondsey, on a council estate, 2-bedroom flat. I've got three siblings, obviously mum and dad, so you can imagine how tight it was there.
Where are you in the siblings?
I'm the eldest.
Oh, you're the firstborn. Okay.
I'm the firstborn. A lot of responsibility that comes with
imagine,
that. And I would say I wasn't your normal. I wouldn't say normal, but like I would say I was quite rebellious.
Really?
Yeah. I got into a lot of trouble in
Doing
school.
what?
Just, I was very kind of like on the circumference of things, of like knowing when to step away. So I went to Jeffrey Chaucer. That was my first secondary
Oh,
school.
you went Chaucer?
Yeah, look at that.
So I went to St. Saviour's. So,
it's funny when you say Chaucer to people, they look at you with this like, like, and you made it.
Yeah, seriously, you made it out of Chaucer. Wow.
Yeah, so I went to Jeffrey Chaucer up until year 9, and was getting into a lot of trouble there. And I remember the head teacher at the time calling my parents in because I was getting suspended back and forth, and you're saying, look, your son is actually quite bright, and I think, it would be good if he moves to a different school. So you don't really know the lingo then. So you're not actually being excluded, but it's kind of like a managed
They
move.
manage you out.
Yeah, they manage you out. But already then my mum wanted me to leave that school already. So she wanted me to get to St. Michael's, which was in Bermondsey. And
that's an upgrade.
It's a huge upgrade. And she did everything in her power. She'd go there like nearly weekly to check where I was on a waiting list.
Oh, wow.
She would obviously make sure we got to church regularly, but she was part of the cleaning team on church as well to make sure she was seen and everything. This is what I say when you don't realize what your parents are doing to get you to the places they want you to be at. So she did that, and what was hilarious is that we used to get the 188 from Canada Water to Jeffrey Chaucer. So the St. Michael students would come on, and we would give them a bit of a rough time.
I can imagine, yes.
Give them a bit of a rough time,
Bullying them, yeah.
I wouldn't use the word, that's a strong word, but yeah, it is what it is in the back of the day. So just little things like you get on the back of the bus, and they'll be sitting there, said move, And then my mum got the call. I was like, yeah, can your son come in for an interview? And I was like,
oh the same bus you have to get on.
Yeah, so I went to the school. Yes, I'm going to the school now. I'm going to Bermondsey, and I get there. I'm sitting in reception, and I can see the same young people that I was troubling going, like pointing at me, just going, I'm like,
Oh,
"Rah."
no.
So anyway, long story short, I got into the school. There was a bit of tension, but it was all good. And I think that gave me another aspect of just even changing schools because I went from a school that was predominantly black
Mm.
to a school that was white essentially. In my year group, there were like 7 boys and I think about 8 girls in my year group out of 120. So
7 black boys.
yeah,
Wow.
and the reason why I know there were 7 black boys is at lunchtime they would have the 6 tables, 6 chairs. You would
Oh.
have one that would just be on at
Oh
the end.
no.
So yeah, went to St Michael's, and then GCSEs. Yeah, failed all my GCSEs essentially.
Oh, even at St Michael's.
Yeah, even at St Michael's because I was still trying to hang on to the life
Oh,
at
okay.
Jeffrey Chaucer and still trying to think, oh, that's me.
Mm.
But you know what's funny, Tolu? On GCSE results day, I still thought I was going to pass. Like, no, seriously, this is where someone says like you're arrogant or just
Wow,
super confident.
delusion.
Yeah, that's the right word. I remember turning up on results day and just like telling other people, "You got this, man. You're good. Don't worry, man." Like literally, I think that's where
No.
my speaking and motivation started to come from. Like telling
Wow.
people, "You got this." I'm thinking, yeah, I've done it, and I've done no work. I've done no work at all. The only subjects I did work in was IT and drama because I enjoyed them.
Yeah.
You know, and I remember opening up my results. It sounded like like wrestling back in the day. It sounded like DDE, that DFD.
Oh
The
no.
results were shocking. The only ones that I did pass was IT and literally drama.
Oh my days.
Yeah, and just going home and telling mum.
Oh, what's
Mm,
that like?
So just for context, my mum, I've got a Nigerian background. I'm Nigerian, and yeah, I was scared, and actually that was probably the defining moment for me because when I went to go and give the results, mum was in between her second job, so she'd come home to rest, and she was going to work again, and gave her the results and literally stepped back because like
Oh, you knew what was coming.
well, I thought I knew what was coming.
Okay,
So
okay.
honestly, I thought I knew what was coming, and then there was just silence, nothing.
Oh, that's even
I'm
worse.
telling you. So I'm looking, and because it was a bit dark, I'm looking, and I'm just going, "What's going on here? She's not seen them." And then I looked closer, and she's crying. Yeah, she's crying. And then I'm like, right. Then something in me,
Oh,
because when we talked about the arrogance of the youth, there was something in me that was just kind of like, oh, I'm feeling this, but why am I feeling this? I'm ready. I was ready for her to shout, and I said, "Mum, you gonna say something?" And she was like, "I failed you." That's what she said. And I was like, "Whoa, that's hit me." She goes, I said, "Mum, what do you mean? I'm the one who was setting the results and whatever. As a parent, I meant to provide the best
oh,
opportunities for you, and this hasn't happened, so I have failed you." And that hit
oh
me
no. That's making
differently.
me emotional now.
Yeah,
Oh my
I even started
days.
crying. "Mum, look, I'm gonna make this right and whatever."
Oh,
And
bless
that really
her.
just changed my mindset of just working hard and actually, just even in life when you're doing stuff, you're not just doing it for yourself. There are a lot of other people that
Mm,
are egging you on to succeed or are invested in you as well. Don't get me wrong, you should do it for yourself, but don't be fooled of just like it's just not only about you, you
yeah.
know. So that definitely was the changing point of just like sorting out my life and just kind of like pushing forward and not wanting to actually disappoint her like that again.
Yeah.
Like honestly, I would rather dealt with the meetings or whatever. But
Yeah.
that lyric, that line, like still now I see it clearly as I'm just telling it to you. So
Yeah.
yeah. So that's kind of a background. So yeah, I went off to college where I met you,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
and resat my GCSEs and passed all of them.
Oh, look at
So yeah,
that. So
yeah.
it's not like you wasn't capable. It's
Oh yeah,
just you
no,
wasn't applying
definitely.
yourself.
I
Yeah.
wasn't applying myself, but I think more importantly, and I think which I've only recently started to talk about in the last 2 years is I couldn't read. Yeah, yeah,
In secondary school.
yeah. Secondary school couldn't read properly. Couldn't read. I had avoided being picked up so well because I would, and that's why I was getting kicked out of lessons.
Okay.
Because I would do anything not to read in
Yeah.
public. Don't get me wrong, I could get by, and that's how I've done. Like, but I was able to remember words.
Okay.
Phonetically, I cannot spell.
Wow.
But I had to develop that. And I remember when I got into SFX, there was this SEN room off the kind of the dining room. And I remember going in there and just saying to a lady, shouting out, just saying, I can't read. And she was like, what do you mean? And she made me actually feel really comfortable because she was like, there's no way you can't read, how have you got to?
So, what made you go to this lady to tell her you can't read?
Because I was struggling. I
Yeah.
was struggling, and I think actually, let me step back. The reason why is I started to see other black people in SFX thriving. They weren't in the bottom or middle set. Everyone I spoke to, more or less, was like, yeah, I got this at GCSE. Yeah, I'm studying this. People were talking about uni. People were talking about, some people talking about internships. I was like, intern who? You know, and I remember meeting my wife. I met my wife at college, and I was trying to move to her, trying to speak to her, and then she said to me, "Oh, so what are you studying?" Yeah.
Sorry, laughing in advance.
Yeah.
Go
She,
on.
she said, "What are you studying?" I was like, "Eh? Like, what are you studying? Like, why are you
Yeah.
asking me that? I'm trying to get to know
Yeah,
you.
yeah,
What are you
yeah.
asking me? What am I studying?" So I was like, like not confident. It was the first time I was like, I was like, GCSEs. And you know what she said to me? I didn't know you could do that. Yeah, that's what she said. Literally, that's what she said to me. So it was just
Oh.
these things where I was just like, I need to do something, because I
Yeah.
don't like feeling like this.
Yeah.
So that's what made me in terms of like, I want to be where these other black people who are trying to achieve, who are trying to do well, and in order for me to do so, I need to deal with some of the stuff that I haven't dealt with.
Yeah.
So I felt like, actually, let me go in there and
Wow.
actually just need help. I had understand what the send department was, and I was like, actually, maybe I need to go there
Yeah.
and do that. And
That's so brave.
yeah, but you know what? The lady, she made me. I can't remember her name, but she made me feel so comfortable because she didn't make me feel stupid. She was like I said, she was saying to me, you must be, you must be able to read. I was like, no, no, I've just been able to get through. And she was like, so how have you functioned? How? She said, I remember words. Like, if you tell me a word once, or if you ask me to spell a word once and you write it down, I will write down a couple of times, but I just remember how the pattern looks. And she goes, well, you must be gifted somehow if you've been able to get through that way without being detected and remember those amount of words. So I was just thinking to myself, so what? Am I some sort of genius then? Clearly not. But
Yeah.
yeah, so I really learned to read properly in college, and that's why I spent a lot of
Wow.
time in that room going through and reading properly. Yeah. So didn't learn to read until I was like end of year 12. Yeah, properly and confidently.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
never knew that part of your story.
yeah, it's
Wow.
just something I'm now more kind of just I'm owning who I am a lot more. I'm
Yes.
feeling confident and being my authentic self. Where I was yesterday is not where I am today. So
Exactly.
actually, if there are young people out there who are struggling to lead and read, or even adults, let's say adults struggling to read, like, you can learn. But it's about actually saying within yourself, I'm gonna feel uncomfortable and go and do this and stepping out of that comfort zone essentially. So yeah.
That's amazing. That's really inspiring. And the fact that you was able to do that at that age in college, I know in the college that we went to as well, it shows the strength of character.
Mm,
And so you went on to retake your GCSEs
mhm,
in college, did really well in them.
mm.
And then something happened around college. Was it between college and university, or was it actually in a lead? At what time of your life
It
was
was
it?
still very early. This was still in the first year.
First year of
Yeah,
college,
first year of
yes.
college. So I got diagnosed with epilepsy. It's called idiopathic epilepsy. So essentially, they don't really know what triggers it. They suspect it could be a few things, and you might need to change some of your lifestyle. So essentially, I've got one chemical in my brain that is not there, that basically isn't balanced. So when that chemical is lower, there's more chance of me having an epileptic seizure. So the first time was, yeah, when I was 16 in college. It was actually after coming back from work. I was at Marks and Spencer's, had done a double shift, and then got home and we were watching Star Wars. Yeah, yeah, I'm a Star Wars fan.
Oh wow,
Yeah,
sorry.
I am. I'm actually a bit of a
A bit of a
nerd.
neat.
Yeah, yeah, and that's
Clearly,
fine.
Star
Yeah,
Wars.
I love, like, and
Anyway,
again,
you're owning who you
I
are.
own who I
So
am.
yeah.
So I'm watching it with my brother, and I remember just waking up at the bottom of our estate and just seeing flashing lights. And even at that stage, I was like, "Oh, ambulance for someone. I hope they're okay." Yeah, I didn't
Wow.
realize it was me. Then the next bit, I woke up in hospital, and it was actually on Christmas Eve, so I spent Christmas Day
Oh
in
no.
hospital. And I just remember waking up to this old guy singing Jingle Bells who was drunk, you know, and I just go, what is that smell?
Oh
And I was
gosh.
just like, where am I? And
Yeah.
like, yeah, so I was diagnosed there. But funny enough, I didn't tell anyone in college. Um, I didn't tell Sheridan. She found out a bit later on, a couple of months later on. Didn't tell any of my friends. Only people that knew were the people in my classes because I had an attack in my class. And again, they didn't know. That's the first time. So I didn't even tell the college.
Wow.
Didn't even tell the college. I was like, I didn't want anyone to know. And that was a hard stage because I was kind of just thinking to myself, right? And I think this is where like my faith was tested as well, and maybe where my relationship kind of with God kind of took a backseat because I just kind of felt like, right, you've left like the road life behind. You're focusing, you're doing a study, and you're putting this in front of me now. I was just thinking, why, you know? And I remember just being a bit angry as well about a diagnosis. But later on, I had to start telling people because they could see things, you know. But I would never really speak about it, even though I told people it was like, don't ask me no questions about it.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about it. Rather, ignorance is bliss, almost, you know. And it was just this thing of like, so am I going to be on medication for the rest of my life? Yeah, and just remembering to take your medication, and even I was stubborn because I thought I'm not taking it. You know,
Really?
I'm not taking it, but then kept ended up in hospital. So yeah, diagnosed at 16, and it was hard, you know. And like I said, it's only now that the last maybe 10 years I'm more comfortable talking about it because again, there's other people out there suffering with it as well, and just raising awareness about it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so, in terms of in college, when this happened, you had were you still able to go on and finish your A levels that you were doing at the time? Or?
Yeah, so finished my A levels. Went off to so did my A levels, did well in those again. And that results day, I felt confident,
Yeah.
you know, because I had actually put the work in. So went off to uni. My epilepsy was kind of under control. And then got to second year in uni, got studying software engineering.
Wow. Sorry, can we just pause
Yeah.
there? Somebody that was saying they couldn't read at 16 went on to uni to study what?
Software engineering.
Wow.
Yeah, so yeah, I have a degree in software engineering.
Incredible.
But that's where I felt most comfortable with in terms of just coding and you know programming. Yeah, I felt comfortable with that, and yeah, it just felt nice to be like almost from failing to know that you're good at something and you have a talent here. And don't get me wrong, I had to work hard
Yeah.
to get that degree, but it felt comfortable being there.
And so, going back actually to when you were diagnosed with epilepsy in college, what was it like for you in terms of mentally at the time, and how did you kind of cope with it?
That's a really good question because even when, as you're saying that, when you say mentally, I didn't know what kind of dealing with stuff emotionally, you know, in terms of mental health. I didn't know that like we didn't grow up.
It
I
wasn't
didn't
a
grow.
thing.
It wasn't a thing. I didn't grow up like that. It was just like you know, push your top lip up and keep on pushing, going through. You don't talk about how you're dealing with it. So I didn't deal with it,
Okay.
and like clearly I didn't. Like so I was very angry at the world, but didn't know that was me kind of struggling to deal with it mentally. So I didn't really address it, if I'm being honest. I'm just thinking back at that age. I just felt angry.
Yeah.
I didn't know that the times where I was feeling down or feeling like frustrated, it was related to that because the main thing was to push on. Like you know, I don't think I would have said in those times to my friends, you know, hey, I'm struggling mentally here. Just
It
it
wasn't a
wasn't seen
thing.
and wasn't the thing then.
Would you be able to share how it affected your outlook on life at the time? So I know you said you was really angry at life. So yeah, how did it affect your outlook on life?
I think I felt jealous of
Oh,
people.
wow.
Of that the world was just moving along, and I hadn't told them, but the world was just moving along, people to go and do what they want to a certain degree, and here's me trying to find a new norm. So I felt jealous that people were able to do that, you know. um I felt angry, and I keep on saying that word. It's just like I couldn't drive, you know, for a while as well, until so you anytime you have an attack you can't drive for a year.
For
Yeah,
a year.
for a whole year. Yeah, for a whole year. So there were just like the frustrations of my driving license, X, Y, and Z. So that's where I said I probably felt jealous and angry, and that's how I kind of just bottled it up. So I think a lot of people just thought, "Oh, this guy's moody."
Yeah.
No, he's moody. And I was really short with people, and I think I closed myself off to the world, like to a certain degree. I think the only person who really kind of got a glimpse into I was struggling with some of this was Sheridan in the early stages, and she tried to address it, but I'm like, no, I'm not struggling. I'm
Okay.
pushing through, man. I'm doing all right.
But
So
she could see beyond
yeah,
it.
yeah, she could
Yeah.
see. Yeah, she could see. I think at that stage she was probably more in tune with mental health than I ever was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you studied software engineering
Mhm.
at university,
Mhm.
and then what did you go on to do career-wise after
Yeah.
that?
So just before about next steps in career wise, there was like a big kind of another turning point in university. So I was in second year, was about to do my exams for that year, and suffered another epileptic attack. But to date, that was the most severe one that I'd suffered. So I was in and out of seizures for about 7 to 8 minutes, they said. And when I woke up in hospital, I actually thought I was back in college. Yeah, yeah. So
Wow.
I suffered retrograde amnesia. So I couldn't remember the last 2 years of my life, essentially. And I remember like this is the first and only time where I've used epilepsy to get me out of trouble.
Yeah.
Waking up in hospital and seeing Sheridan, I'm looking at her, I'm looking back, looking at her, thinking, something looks different here. Then looking at her, looking back, I said, you've put on some weight, isn't it?
No. From
Yeah,
college to oh
yeah,
my
yeah.
days.
So I
No.
was in
Oh
that, and then she
wow.
was
So
like,
you were literally
yeah.
back in
So she,
college.
yeah. So then she's looking at me, and I'm just like, not understanding what the issue is.
Mm.
But yeah, and I thought back in college, she literally had to remind me of who were my friends in uni and stuff like that. Um, and at the time, Westminster University said to me, "Hey, look, Lawrence, you know what? You've got your exams. What ways we can defer you for another year? And we won't charge you for anything. Can you imagine a university not charging you for anything?
Wow.
They said that we won't charge for anything because it's under medical things. And part of me was gonna take that, but I felt like no, I'm already behind. I don't know where I'm behind in, but I was like, I've already a year behind on not doing I'm failing my GCSEs. So I decided no, I want to do it in the summer, sitting. When you go in and and it gets capped at 40, so they won't cap it or anything like that. And luckily, I negotiated. If I didn't do too well, I could just do the
Then
whole
you
year.
could do
Do the whole
defer
year.
it.
So I said,
Okay.
look, okay, got nothing to lose. So I spent from May all the way to August just relearning the content, not revising.
Wait, this is from beginning of the course.
Yeah, so I only had to focus on second year
Oh,
content.
they only made you okay,
Yeah,
okay. So,
yeah, yeah.
but the whole second year
Whole second year.
again.
Yeah, so there was bits where I had to dive into first year, because obviously the foundations.
Yeah,
But spent that summer just relearning, not revising,
yeah,
relearning.
exactly from scratch.
And Sheridan literally helped me. So she claims that she's got a dual degree in
Absolutely, yeah.
psychology and software engineering because she was like learning about Java.
Wow.
But yeah, I came out of it really well. So relearned the content and yeah, pushed through. And the question I get a lot of the time is are all your memories back?
I was literally gonna follow.
Yeah,
That was gonna
yeah.
be a follow-on question. Yeah, did that bit ever come back?
And this is the answer I say, how do you know what you don't know?
Mm,
So there will be moments where someone will mention something from college or something like that, and I'm like, oh, you do know, you do remember? I'm like, I don't know. And they're like, no, you do know, Lawrence. I'm
mm.
like, I don't know. So sometimes what I just do to save that is I just nod. There are gaps in between, but I think the majority of the memories are back. Yeah. So yeah, so that happened in second year, but yeah, went on to get my degree, got a 2-1
Wow.
yeah in software engineering, and then before actually this is actually quite important because this will actually end up how I got into teaching was I had a placement set up, but I couldn't take the placement because of the
Mm,
memory loss and
yeah.
just like they were a small startup but a
Okay.
thriving business now. They're quite huge now. But I couldn't take it. on. So I still wanted to do my placement year. They called it a sandwich degree back in the day then. So what I ended up doing was I gave the placement to my friend in the same class and said, look, I know someone who's really good.
Oh
They were always
wow.
there. So he went for an interview, got the placement year there. And I actually ended up going back to St. Michael's because I needed somewhere where I felt safe. And I explained to them what had gone on. So I went there and did my placement year there and worked as an IT technician essentially.
Wow.
Yep.
So you basically got them to create a sandwich course for you.
Essentially, yeah, yeah,
Wow.
essentially. And imagine this is the school that I gave hellfire to. You know, like,
Yeah.
but yeah, they took me back, and some of the teachers were there and everything. It was a different head teacher by then. So yeah, did my placement year there, and funny enough, like the placement year was good. But I found, I would say, my calling because while I was working with the computers, like at break and lunchtime, I would end up speaking to young people, and I would see particularly black people, young black boys making the same mistakes that I was making. So I would have
Mm.
a conversation with them, and the head teacher saw something in me, and she was like, "You've got a calling." And I was like, what are you talking about? And she's like, no, you've got a calling. She goes, I've got a year to work on you to become a teacher before you go back. I was like, no, I'm not interested in teaching. I'm
Wow.
going off to the city. I'm going to go and do
Yes.
big
Yeah.
things and da 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 da. And like, even then I didn't realize I was talking down on teachers, just with
Yeah.
that arrogance and that. And yeah, so did that, went back off to uni and she made me an offer before I was going back to uni, and the offer was this. It was work 4 days a week here, and I'll give you 1 day a week to focus on your business because I had like a web design
Mm.
business that we started up to focus on your business and grow that. And at that time, like it was hard when we came out uni to get jobs
Of
at that time,
course. Yeah.
So I was like, oh, it's a no-brainer. Let me just quickly do that, and I'm getting paid. I'm working 4 days and getting paid 5 days.
Mm.
So I'm just like,
Oh,
yeah,
she was telling you to work 4 days,
yeah,
but
yeah,
pay for the
yeah,
week.
yeah. I hope I don't
Nice.
get anyone else into
Yeah,
trouble.
yeah, yeah, no, yeah, yeah, yeah. But that's
But yeah, yeah.
amazing.
So
She really saw something in you.
yeah, so I did that, and that's how I ended up in teaching after university. So
Wow, you answered the call.
yeah, yeah,
And what was your experience like teaching?
loved it.
Yeah.
Loved it. Loved working with young people, learning from them as well. I definitely had. I felt I'd found my calling. I wasn't getting paid what I thought I should be getting paid, but that wasn't an issue. I never really thought about that. Because I think number one, it was like, hey, I'm a graduate, I'm making decent money,
Mm.
at that time, and I was having an impact on the next generation. And for me, that is this this money can't buy
Yeah.
that, that impact that you're doing with working with young people. So I absolutely enjoyed that. It's hard. Don't get me wrong. There's other bits of
Yeah.
like in terms of not just working with the youngsters, but like the marking, the planning, and then yeah, became a head of year. Um, and was responsible for 130 young people.
Wow. What was that like?
It was a lot.
Yeah.
It was a lot. But again, just enjoyed it. The pastoral side was just like my like enjoyed it because when you have your first year group or your first GCSE class that go who are year 11, and then you see them in Tesco and they're just like, "Hey, Mr. Tijjani, thank you so much, for like sitting down and talking to me. I'm doing this
Mm.
now," and they're telling you what they're doing, and you're just like,
Wow.
"Wow, I played a tiny role in that."
Absolutely.
And then went on to become a head of faculty, which was now I'm responsible for not just a year group, but the whole faculty, so members of staff as well. I was actually a head of faculty for humanities,
Oh
funny
wow.
enough, yeah. So I had line managed history, geography, RE as well.
Quite a career journey you've had
Yeah,
up until that point in
yeah.
itself. So what was a highlight, would you say, career highlight at that time in teaching?
I think I kind of mentioned this is just working with some of the most difficult youngsters in the year group and helping them kind of find their path is always going to mean the most to me,
Mm.
and I think that will always stand out to me. And just seeing them now as adults in Tesco and realizing how old I'm getting now because some of them are having kids now.
Oh
Yeah,
wow.
yeah. And you're like, wow. And just them seeing that, they've been able to change their circumstances because a lot of young people, I think we assume everyone just comes from a good home,
Mm.
but you never know actually what they're facing at home, and
Yeah.
what they've had to do to be sitting in your maths class or your computing class. So yeah,
No, it's
just seeing
true.
that they've been able to change their journey and their course too.
It must be very rewarding. And I think I was very much like you growing up in terms of I couldn't wait to leave school. I was just like, yeah, I
Mm,
used to look down on teachers a
mm.
lot. So as much as now I'm a lot older, I'm like, actually, I really wish I had considered teaching, because pouring back into the next generation, like you can't put a price on it.
Mm.
It's just so impactful.
No, absolutely, man. I always say I have a phrase saying paying it forward.
Yes.
Hmm.
And that's literally what you've done, because you always heard like these celebrities and stuff when they talk about, oh, I remember my music teacher that told me I could do this, or my drama teacher that told me I had this talent. And it has such a lasting impact. There was a teacher in SFX, actually, my RE teacher, Miss Flavin Lees.
Hmm.
Shout out Miss Flavin Lees if
Hmm.
she's still around. She
Hmm.
was so incredible. She taught me about mind maps.
Hmm.
So for me, I used to struggle to retain information in school. And she was the one that taught me about mind maps. Basically, make a picture
Mm.
of all the things that you're trying to learn, and that's literally how I got through all my A levels at the time, because I just used to put everything on the paper and just memorize where things were on the paper. So in the exam, I could just see where things were,
Love
and
it.
that's how I got through
Love it.
college and uni as well. It
Yeah.
just changed my revision
Yeah.
forever. So that woman, eternally
Yeah.
grateful for her.
And that's what it is. It only takes, one person to believe in you,
Yeah.
when others don't. And it could be anything in terms of just having that conversation, that 5 minute conversation. You
Mm.
don't know where that's going to lead. But what I say is that we're all connected. So if you paid that forward to that young person or whatever it is, they're going to pass it on to someone else. And
Mm.
that's how you change the world. When we talk about changing the world, everyone thinks it's got to be this massive thing that you do. But it's actually those kind of small things that you do. As you're saying, that pun intended, is time is money.
Yeah.
And actually, if I'm seeing to be spending my time with you, and that's what I used to say to young people, I'm spending my time with you. Once I spend that, I'm never going to get that back.
Mm.
And they appreciate that.
Okay, so then during your career, while you were climbing you don't call it corporate ladder, um,
The
climbing the ranks
educational,
within,
yeah.
climbing the ranks within the
Yeah.
school
Yeah.
system, something happened that made you consider your career choices and make a career shift. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we've not mentioned my epilepsy for a bit, but I had a severe attack. It was 10 years ago, this summer. I had a severe epileptic attack, just before I was about to go on to holiday. Like I said, I said to the students, "Go away, be your
Your
parents'
parents'
problem."
problem.
Had walked back to my office and got into my office, and I was feeling okay. I didn't feel like an aura of anything coming on, but I had a severe one, and I caught my neck in between, so my desk and the wall, in between it like this. So I'd caught my neck, and I was seizing there. And we had these new offices where you can't get entry to them if you haven't got a card. So essentially, people could see me seizing, but couldn't get in. So they had to find someone who had access to get into my office. Um, so I woke up in hospital, familiar thing of waking up in hospital, and I couldn't feel my legs. So I'd woken up in hospital and I was just like, I can feel the pain here, here, and here. But hold on, I'm not feeling it down here. So I couldn't feel my legs. And I freaked out, obviously, and I had to be sedated. And then came back round and still couldn't feel my legs. Now, this only lasted for 3 to 5 days. I can't remember exactly. But
Only?
yeah.
That's not only.
And it was just the most terrifying thing ever. And I actually remember, like, I didn't really say much. I was in the high dependency ward, so literally you have this whole monitor. You have someone always sitting at the end of your bed, because it was so
Mm.
serious. And you have two nurses, and I remember the doctor just coming in and out, in and out, in and out, not really saying much. And I wanted to ask a question, but I was so scared to ask the question. And that question was, am I going to be able to walk again? Because I was scared of the answer. And I finally plucked up the courage to do so. And the response was very kind of, doctor, like, we'll see how it goes for the next couple of days and we'll monitor it. And just kind of saying, we're not going to make no promises here. So in that moment, I was just thinking about life and just like how I've taken it for granted, how I've not done what I said I wanted to do. I kept on saying tomorrow, tomorrow, tomorrow. And was just thinking about it. I was like, what does this life look like? Um, Praise God, the feeling came back in my legs, but it came back with a vengeance. So it came back with this ridiculous pain that the only closest way I can describe it is like someone taking a hammer and chisel to your knees, like just going doof, doof, doof. And I just remember screaming, crying, saying, "Take this pain away from me." So again, they had to sedate me to get it under control. Then was on the heavy painkillers like morphine every 4 hours, like through drip, injections. So I was in hospital for a long period of time. Had to go through physio. So was on walking aids for nearly, I think, 4 or 5 months. Like couldn't walk without them. I had to go and learn to re-walk and use the muscle in them because I was just sitting down, lying down, and everything. Became very heavily dependent on care, essentially. And at that stage, me and Sharon had moved in there, and she actually became my carer. She would lay out the food before she went off to work and everything. And I was very stubborn, you know, where I was meant to be using the aids to go to the toilet or walk around the flat, I wouldn't. And one of the worst things happened was my legs gave way and I was on the floor until she came home from work. But it was hard. It was hard. And I think that's when I really went into myself and I kind of even questioned my existence because going from someone who is highly independent, I moved out when I was 17, and had my own flat, to now depending on people, I couldn't find comfort in that. I couldn't find, like, I just wasn't used to it. It was alien to me. And I kind of just was like, what kind of potential husband am I going to be? What the potential father I'm going to be if I can't even do the basics? And I felt sorry for myself. And I just said, you know what? I said in one point, I said, God, just come and take me, because I just didn't see this as my life. And you know what? That's the first time I really understood what mental health was. And I remember just having a conversation with friends, Moody, Sheridan, and telling them kind of how I felt like this. And they said, look, you tell young people never to give up. So how are you gonna try and give up? And that's when things really clicked for me. And I was just like, you know what, it's true. You got to practice what you preach. So that's when I went really focused on the recovery and really pushed through and really started talking about my mental health. And I actually did a blog post about mental health, and it was called "A Letter to Depression." And it was the easiest way for me to get my feelings across without actually having to have a one-on-one conversation with people. So even though I had written it, I then didn't speak to anyone about
Yeah,
it because I just
yeah.
wasn't ready for that. I didn't expect the kind of response I got from it, like just people reaching out, men going, "Thank you so much for writing this," and wow, and I just got a lot, and I was actually overwhelmed by it, and I wasn't ready for that kind of attention. Um, but yeah, I had to relearn to walk, but then I was just having repeated seizures. I just couldn't get my medication under control in teaching. So I always made a promise to myself is that I would never be one of those teachers that just stay in it for the sake of staying in it. Like it pays my mortgage. I wouldn't do that. So the moment I fall out of love with teaching or I can't be there for the young people, it's time for me to go. So I made the hard decision to leave teaching and didn't know what I was doing next. Yes, I had a little side hustle in a web design agency, but it wasn't making the money that was going to sustain me. But I just knew I had to go and focus on Lawrence properly and not do it in kind of just patching it up, putting a bandage around it, of actually go and do some real surgery on Lawrence and heal, essentially. So yeah, so that's when I left teaching.
And what was that healing journey like for you? How did you start to heal?
I think just being alone quiet, those quiet days of just looking around, of just going, right, who is Lawrence? Because I'd lost who Lawrence was. As much as I'd put this perception up of like everything's fine and everything, I'd lost who I am. I didn't really know who I was. And I think when I left teaching, that actually like made it worse. Completely lost here. What am I doing? So I just had the first thing was like, be kind to Lawrence. you know, Be patient and kind to Lawrence. You know, you're patient with other people. Be kind to yourself. Like, you've actually gone through a life-changing moment. You're still here. Praise God. But you just need to focus on rebuilding yourself. So it was just taking time, and I think that's the bit where I learned to be a lot more empathetic, you know, with myself and even just with other people. You know, we have these high standards that we set on ourselves that we wouldn't hold other people to, you know, which is
Absolutely.
crazy.
Yeah.
So that was that journey of just finding out who I was and taking time and just, you know, continue blogging as well.
You quit your successful career as a head of faculty.
Hmm.
That was your last post
Yeah.
before you left, right? Yeah. And then you started blogging about your journey with
Mm.
depression and finding Lawrence. So talk to us a little bit more about what the journey thereafter has been.
Journey after there was like, okay, right. I said to you, I'm not sure what I'm gonna do.
Mm.
But as I was just exiting teaching, because you have to give a lot of notice before you leave teaching, um, I was responsible for the IT across the college. So like implementation of IT, how teachers are using it, tech as well. And that was going to be my senior leadership role essentially, but I couldn't do it. Yeah,
Oh.
so yeah, that would have been my role. So, but I was already doing the essence of it. But it was one of the best things because just before I'd left, or I was leaving, I had booked onto this Google for Education kind of training seminar that I went to, and I went to it. It was really good. Said to the school, I definitely think we need to go Google. I'll put some of the things in place before I leave. So I did that. And then made a good connection with a guy called Dean Stokes who was there, and he was leading the training and leading the whole day. So he's like, "Hey, why don't you come to this boot camp where we teach you more in depth? You know, you get a free ticket because your school's using Google for Education." So I'm like, "Yeah, okay." And you know, it's normally on that day. I normally would have went home because when they say networking at the end of the day, I'm like, I can't be bothered to do this, you know. But I went to the pub and networked with him. So, you know, this is why sometimes you just need to go and do it outside your comfort
Mm.
zone. So, went to his boot camp. Then this other guy was there, it wasn't Dean. So I was to the other guy. I said, "Oh, Dean said he would be leading it," and he was like, "I'm just as capable as Dean." I was like, "Oh, I didn't mean that. I didn't mean it like that." You know how we can be blunt sometimes,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
So, during the training session, and then during the training session, I just kept on putting my hand up. I must have been annoying him. Like, going, "Oh, but why would you do it this way? Why you do that?" Just asking better questions. That's just how I am. And then at the end of the training session, he was like, and I think he meant this nicely. He was like, "Oh, you like to ask quite a lot of questions, don't you?" He's like, "Yeah, I just need to understand why I'm doing what I'm doing." He goes, "Oh, since you like to ask a lot of questions, why don't you get into this training thing?" Because I
Mm.
told him I'm leaving teaching. So I was like, "Oh, okay, let me know more." So did it, did some of the training and everything. And then when I had left, I was still going, okay, I've done the training, what should I do now? So I messaged the head teacher who was there at St Michael's again, as it says in my documentary, all roads lead back to South
Yeah.
London for me. I said, "Hey, yeah, you know, as you know, I've left teaching. Trying to be a consultant. Could you come in?" And then she was like to me, "Okay, how much do you charge for the day and for half day?" So I was like, "Wow, how much do you charge? Here's me." Okay, for half day, because like school day is normally about 6 hours. I was like, £75, and yeah, yeah. And then for a whole day, £150.
Oh, you know, you
Yeah,
thought you were doing
yeah.
numbers
I thought I
there.
was doing numbers. I was like, yes, I've sold to somebody. I was like, whoa. And then I was doing that for a bit with them now and again. Some other schools were asking to do stuff, and I was like, all these schools are asking,
Yeah,
like,
because it's
it's
cheap.
cheap.
They're like,
Yeah, it was cheap. So I spoke to the guy, and I was like to him,
oh,
"Oh
I'm
yeah,
scared.
I'm getting the thing." And he's like, "Oh, how much you charge?" And I said, "Well, 150 for a day." He said, "What?" So it's like, he goes, "Come and train with us, like
Oh
if you're
my
doing it already." So I
god.
was like, "Okay, so how much do you guys pay your trainers?" He's like, £500 minimum. I'm like, huh? So I was sitting there, you know, I feel like you said, I thought I was doing numbers.
Yeah.
And then so I went to go and train with the company he was working with. So started up my own started consulting with them. But then I saw something in the industry where I was just like, I'm going to all these events, I'm seeing the same faces. I'm like, this isn't a really inclusive community, you know. I'm just seeing the same old middle-aged white men leading this, you know.
Mm.
And I even was at one event. I will not name the trust. I was doing a keynote. My money had gone up then. I was doing a keynote, and they had to use the devices because we're talking about obviously technology. But I like to get involved, so I'm unpacking the devices, putting the boxes underneath the table and everything. The CEO of the trust comes up to me, and I've got my mic on. He just can't see it. Lapelled or
Oh
mic'd up.
gosh.
Comes up to me. He goes, "We're about to start now. If you'd like to leave." And you know what I said to him? I was like, "Okay." Like literally, I didn't know what to
Yeah,
say.
that's all.
So he thought I was just a cleaner, you know.
Wow.
So I was like, "Oh, okay," and I actually left. I
Oh,
came
you
back. I
no,
came
you
back in.
didn't leave,
I
Lawrence.
did. Like, I pretended to leave, and be like, then I was like, "Where am I going?" I was just in so much shock,
Yeah,
you
like
know.
he
Kind
just
of,
said that to
yeah,
you.
you said that to me, you know, and just made this assumption. And he was sitting at the front.
Oh,
So
good.
as I was walking to the stage, I remember walking past him and just going slowly, just looking at him, and he just kept going.
Yeah, of course. You're
That's
gonna
his
sink
shit.
in that sheet as you should.
So I delivered the keynote, and then
Lol. Oh,
um
that's hilarious.
after he came to me and he said, "Oh, sorry about that." And that's probably one of the first times where I kind of wished I had said something and I had challenged it, but I didn't, because I said, "Oh, it's okay." But what I should have said is, "What are you sorry about?" The same way he made me feel uncomfortable, I should have asked him, "Actually, what are you sorry about?
Yeah.
Let's really
Let's
address
really address
address it.
this and you can learn.
No, and then he can learn." So from that and just the different environments, I said, "You know what? I'm going to start up my own professional Google PD partner." So I did that. Went off and did that with the support of the guys who I was working with, and they understood my reasons and rationale for doing it. You know, because I always say that it's not just about me being the only black person or black owner. Is actually it's representing an idea that anyone can go and do it, and that's kind of why I went to go and do it. Did I really want to? No, but I was like, actually, it's bigger than me. You know, so I started my own company and I became the first black-owned PD partner in Europe.
Wow.
Yeah, and
Company name?
Happy to Host Education. Yeah, thank you for the plug there.
Yeah,
There we go.
exactly.
Check us out. But one of the main things was not just about starting a company, was to give opportunities to people that look like me as well, and more importantly, not just that look like me, but who weren't on that stage. Because see, for me, is that if you're selling into education, the people that are doing it or delivering the training have got to be reflective of the young people that we are trying to help. Because that's essentially,
Yes.
much as we're doing it from the tech point of view, we're going to have an impact on them. And yeah, so we set up a program that worked with diverse trainers, helping them to become trainers, but more importantly, giving them a platform to showcase who they are. So in my company, we will always try and promote new talent and people who may not be seen, you know, who should be on stage delivering. Because believe me, man, there's so many talented women, you know, people who just don't get that platform. So we try and create that platform for them to do that.
Whilst running Happy to Host Education, you also founded a CIC. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it's called Just a Guy CIC, and it was something like Happy to Host is doing well, was doing well through there, but I felt like I was just missing something. You know, like I wasn't getting the interaction with young people as much, and as much as I like working in technology and ed tech, I felt like okay, this pays my bills, it pays the mortgage, it does well, you know, but something wasn't feeding my soul.
You missed the kids.
Yeah, I miss the kids,
Yeah.
man. I miss them. So from my blog, so this is how Just a Guy, the name comes about. You know, my blog was called Just a Guy Trying to Make It because I was just so frustrated of life, of these little things that were being put in, you know, my way. Some of it I was the architect of it. Some of it was just like was out of my control. So I was blogging about that, and then people would ask me to come in and give talks at their schools or just events. So I just thought, okay, right, I'm doing talks at schools to young people, but that's just an hour. That's not really the most impactful thing. Could I be doing more? So that's when I thought of, okay, right, what about if I start a non-profit that works with young people to help them drive their own social mobility? So I was like, hey, I've got Just a Guy Trying to Make It. Let's just shorten it to Just a Guy. And it just represents that it's just anyone trying to make it, you know, that, you know, you could be in any situation, but you just need one person to help you, or just one person to see you, more importantly.
Yeah.
So we started that up, and yeah, it's transforming. It's hard work. It's now getting to the place where I want it to be. So what I actively do is we use the profits from Happy to House Education to fund it.
Oh wow.
Essentially, yeah. So yeah, we use the profits to fund it. So 15% of our profits will always go to Just a Guy to make sure we're able to get into schools and work with young people. And we've now enhanced it to be a program, essentially. So it's a 6 week program, and it's called Empower Me,
Okay.
and it goes through different things such as the hidden curriculum, I call it. You know,
Oh.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's good to
yeah,
talk about money in there.
yeah, yeah. So that's one of the things we want to add into
Yeah.
it as well. The hidden curriculum in terms of you go to university, you do an apprenticeship and everything. You know, particularly if you come from a background where you haven't had money and you get through uni and you graduate, and you almost go, come and take me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
No one's coming to
No
take
one's
you.
coming to say, listen, the dream that we were sold. It's
I'm
like,
telling you, so you're just really
yeah,
confused.
yeah,
But then you see some of your white friends, you know, who are doing well, and you're like, how have they been able to get that place and do this? While like every summer they're doing internships, they're networking, they know someone who knows someone, and it's getting them into a graduate role. So I was like, okay, so I went through this. So what could we create as a curriculum to potentially help people from underserved communities? So we looked at it and we thought, right, power skills. What's the first thing that we need to really start to think about? Is number one, self of who I am. How can I be my authentic self? Another one is confidence. Is how to network, how to write a compelling LinkedIn profile. We had it as a CV, but we changed it in terms of the way the world is. People are
yeah,
getting recruited
yeah.
now, and then they go through the program and resilience as well. And we discuss things like code switching in there as well, and like, you know, is it a bad thing? Is it a good thing? And funnily enough, in our last cohort, nearly all the young people said it's not a bad thing, code switching.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah,
really?
I was surprised, but
I'm
yeah,
very surprised. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
but yeah, they said it's not a bad thing. So yeah, we developed that program, and like we're seeing results from it. We're getting young people to go through it. You can go and donate on Just a Guy. That's justaguy.co.uk as well, because we need donations to keep the program running. But yeah, that means a lot for me, and that feeds my soul. Um, and at the end of at the end of the 6 weeks, they've got to do a presentation on what they've learned and how they're going to apply it. And then we try and get the businesses where we're hosting the Empower Me program to get their staff to come and watch it as
Yeah.
well. And just seeing how they grow over those 6 weeks to delivering a presentation and just stuff. Like the last one, they nearly had me in tears because there was one young guy who like was so uncomfortable, stepped out of his comfort zone and really you know, delivered. And he had a condition that he wouldn't talk about, you know, and he owned it because
Wow.
wouldn't refer to the name of the condition. He would just say this,
Yeah,
you know, this,
yeah.
but actually kind of owned it. And like that's what almost got me in tears about it. It
Yeah.
was just like we're giving a place for young people to learn new stuff, but more importantly, be their
Be
authentic self. Yeah.
themselves. Yeah.
So yeah,
Because what's the age group of the young people you're working
we
with?
work with 17 to 21 year
So,
olds.
wow.
Yeah.
And that's a
Yeah,
crucial
yeah.
age.
We're gonna push the 22 because we feel like we've got some work to also do with people that just come out of uni as well.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yeah. That's amazing. And I wish we had things like that around when I was coming out of college, because I think a lot of it is in terms of how you see yourself as opposed to the actual external factors. So if you don't think you belong in that room or you belong in that space or you're capable of applying for that role, you just won't do it.
100%. Did you know there was this interesting thing is that a white man would apply for a role if he goes through the criteria and he meets 2 out of 12.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I can
Whereas
believe
a
that.
woman, right, will not apply for that role unless they meet every single
I'm
criteria.
that woman, yeah.
Did you see what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
stuff like that of like empowering people to say, you know what, you can do it.
Hmm.
You know, there are a lot of people that are doing the role who are faking it, you know.
Exactly.
And it's actually just like that whole thing of like, it's okay, you don't have to have it all worked out.
Yeah.
But what's the value is that, you know, having a network, and it's that old saying that your net worth is your network.
Yeah.
You know.
And it's so true.
Yeah.
It really is. And that's amazing the work you're doing with those
Thank you,
young
man.
people, man. And it's
Mm,
yeah, it's
mm,
very good to give back and to help equip the next generation, because
absolutely.
these are things that are going to carry them through life, and they're not going to forget it. So no, it's amazing.
And you know how I see it is when I'm tired,
Mm.
right? I'm like, I can't give any more sometimes. I just look at Zeke, and I hope that someone would give him that and pay it forward to him. And actually, that's what keeps me going.
Yeah.
Essentially, yeah.
And hopefully people will, because yeah, the children are our future. And
Exactly, you know.
if they can grasp these things from a young age, it's just they're gonna be unstoppable, literally
Absolutely.
unstoppable. Because yeah, like you said, it's just so funny. People in positions that you're more than able to be in, that you could probably do the job better, but you won't go. Whereas the other person will just be like, oh yeah, I can figure it out, and they figure it out on the job.
And sorry, just a quick one on that. The biggest thing that we get from our program is we talk about imposter syndrome
Yes.
early,
Oh, good.
really as early as we can in the program, because I never knew what imposter syndrome was. I knew there was something up, where like, I'd be really nervous and be like, oh, why am I doing this? Why am I here? And just feeling like I'm about to be found out.
Yes, yeah.
I'm about to find out. But yeah, so we address that, and that's a big thing in our
Amazing,
program. Yeah.
amazing. And how do people apply for the program and get on the program? Is there a criteria that they have to meet to be able to access it?
So what we're focusing on now is from people from underserved communities. So you have to have received free school meals at some point during your
Okay.
early education to be able to apply to the program. We're trying to keep it as open
Yeah,
as
yeah.
possible, and we want to work with everyone. I think the biggest thing that I say to people is that you're willing to attend, and no one can refer you. You
Yeah.
have to apply on your own thing because it's in the evenings,
Okay.
and they've got to come themselves. So it's not during college time or anything.
Yeah.
It's from 6 to 7:30 in the evening. At the moment, we've got one that's happening in Sutton. We just had a partnership with Oru, so that will be starting on the 13th of November, and then the others will just pop up on the website in different
Yeah.
locations. We're hoping by the end of 2025 to at least hit the main boroughs of London, essentially.
Incredible.
Yeah.
That's a big mission.
Yeah.
No, it's great work that you're doing for the young people, because I'm thinking children in that age bracket, some of them probably never done a presentation in their lives. So to now stand up in front of all these adults and give a presentation about themselves as well, I can imagine it would be very rewarding. I'll probably cry the whole way through it as well, watching
Yeah.
them. Okay, so then your passion for inspiring young people, because I've noticed that trend across your whole life and career today. Like, you have a really deep-rooted passion for young people. Where do you think that stems from?
I would say my mum. Um, my mum always helps people. Sometimes to her own detriment. Like even when I was young, if she's got to give, she will give to the person. And even sometimes she hasn't, she will do. No, she is a giving person, and I think subconsciously that's impacted me in terms of just always wanting to give back, not just to young people. Of like, if I can be some sort of value to you and I've got the time to do it, I will do it, because I just hope that when I'm in my worst days or something's going on, that someone sees me and actually spends the time with me. So I think that's the whole thing, and I think being becoming a parent and just kind of what I've gone through is actually empathy and just giving back. It doesn't cost you anything, or just little things. And I really want to hone in this point is that just sending a friend a text message and saying, I'm proud of you, I love you, can mean the world to that person. And actually, quite recently, I did something like that. I sent a text message to all my closest male friends, say, I love you, bro, I'm proud of you, keep doing what you're
Wow.
doing. And the responses were hilarious. I got,
I can imagine a mixture of
oh
responses.
my gosh,
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
like, are you good, bro?
Yeah.
Are you good, bro? Even to one guy thought I was going to end my life.
Yeah,
Like
oh
literally,
my
literally,
gosh,
literally to that
really?
whole thing, because we don't do it, and it's not a norm that I do as well. It's not just how they
Yeah,
responded to
yeah.
it. They like, one guy got in a panic because after I'd sent it, I went into meetings for back to back, so my phone was on
Oh
do not
my
disturb, so he
god.
couldn't get hold of me. Message somebody else, and yeah, it just made me realize that actually we don't do that enough, to say to someone, I'm proud of you. Like Tolly, the stuff that you were doing, honestly, I take my hat off to you.
Oh, thank you.
I sit there and just go, she's smashing it. She's doing great. And like, no, kudos to you. And that whole thing is like, give people their flowers. Don't give people their flowers when they've passed, because they can't smell them.
Facts. Facts. No, facts. Okay, so then you've done a lot over your career. You've been through a lot. You had so many challenges, so many hardships, and you've also pursued a really successful career. But you haven't stopped. There's still another thing that you've started to do more recently, and that's enter it into the world of public speaking. So talk to us a little bit about that journey.
So, what's actually hilarious? My newsletter this week is about the kind of going into public speaking. I never thought I'd be doing that. Let alone being flown across the world to do public speaking. And it's more to share my journey of just resilience and actually overcoming obstacles in your life. And if one person takes something from that, I'm a happy person.
Yeah.
And I've been fortunate enough to be flown to Australia
Oh wow.
to do a keynote as well, and yeah, in business class.
Come on.
Yeah, yeah, I was in business class, and I
Not
was like,
£75 this time.
not the
£75 for the
£75,
day.
but sometimes you need to start somewhere, to know
Yeah.
what as they say, yesterday's price is not today's
It's not
price.
today's price.
So yeah, I've gone to that realm of public speaking, and the reason why I mentioned my newsletter is that I actually only pushed a hit on my website this week.
Yeah.
It had been ready for a whole year, but I was trying to, yeah,
Wow.
it was ready. Totally, it was ready, but I was trying to be a perfectionist, and there was something about where this is where imposter syndrome kicks in, where I was like, who am I to tell people to come and book me on my website to
Yeah.
speak? Like, what have I actually done? Like, what have I
Yeah.
achieved? What have I been through? I was all these things. So
Can you imagine?
I know, I kept on putting it off. And do you know what really made me hit the go button?
What?
I got a notification from 123 Reg that your domain is ready to renew.
No.
And I was like, a year.
It's been a
And I was
year.
like, you know what, Lawrence, push that button. And I pushed that button, and I kid you not, like I did it on, I think it was on Tuesday or Wednesday, I can't remember. I've already had 2 inquiries. Now they might not lead to anything,
No, that's
but
crazy.
that tells me. Imagine what would have done if I had hit
In
that a
12
year ago.
months.
Yeah, exactly. So there you go. Sometimes you just got to hit that button, let it be live, and pivot and adapt.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. And I'm sure that website is going to be getting loads of traffic and loads of
Thank you.
hits and loads of bookings because your story is very inspiring.
Thank you.
It's your story of resilience over the past 10 years, even beyond that, has just been incredible. Every time I see your LinkedIn post or your Instagram post, rather, I'm just like, nah, this guy, like, you just don't stop. You don't stop. You've been through so much and you just keep going. You keep your head up. And I just wanted to ask about resilience. Like, how are you so resilient and what is resilience to you?
I actually use this in one of my keynotes when I look at the definition of resilience from the Oxford Dictionary, and it says the capacity to recover quickly.
Mm.
I have an issue with it. The term quickly.
Mm.
For me, resilience isn't this thing that has to be done very quickly and you have to bounce back. It's about the main thing is that you get back up. Because if I'm telling you to be resilient and you just lost your mum and say recover quickly, you're gonna backhand me. So it's about actually that you get back up, and it's also knowing the difference between failing and failure. They're very different.
Mm.
Failing is actually you learning new stuff and getting back up and going. When you use the term failure or failed, is you now say that is definite. That's you saying, I'm not getting back up. So know the difference between those two. Um, and you asked me how I've become resilient. I think life, and I think also the people that are around me. I have to shout out the people that are around me that prop me up. That help me because I'm not easy. When I'm going through it, I'm not easy. But the biggest thing, an indication of like what helps my resilience is literally this.
Mm.
As long as this is beating, I have purpose and I keep on going. And that's my thing. I'm gonna have bad days, gonna have good days, but actually I'm gonna keep on moving forward. I'm never gonna let the bad days get to my heart. I'm gonna accept that, hey, having a bad week, having a bad month. But Lawrence is always gonna recover.
I love that. And any advice you would give to anybody then that is going through a challenging situation? It might be health related or just life in for them. Like any advice you'd give to them, like how they can be more resilient and how they can push through.
I think with resilience, it's built over time. Over time, it's like a muscle. Is keep on putting yourself number one. If number one is keep on putting yourself in positions to grow and come out of that comfort zone. I think the other thing is if you're in that stage where like life's tough, you're going through it, is seek help. You know, we're not an island. Your connections, and I mentioned that your network is your net worth. Is actually reach out to people. Speak to people. Nearly anyone who loves and cares about you will give you that time of day. If anyone ever came to me and said, "Hey, yo, Lawrence, I'm struggling with this," I'll drop what I'm doing because that person needs me in that moment. And don't think actually they're going to judge you because that's what happens a lot of the time. Why we don't reach out is that you're going to feel judged, that, oh my gosh, people are going to think this of me. And that even talks into imposter syndrome. And I remember a friend saying to me, that he actually thinks it's quite arrogant that you think people are going to speak about you.
Yeah.
That people are actually going to go home and they're struggling with their own thing that they're dealing with.
Yeah.
So leave that ego at the door. Get rid of that ego and ask for help, whoever that might be, from a professional, from your spouse, from your sisters, brothers, whoever it is. Speak to people.
That's really good. That's good. That's really good advice. I think, yeah, I can't add more to that. It is just speak to people and don't think that you're an island. Yeah, because none of us are an island, and you don't know just by reaching out to that one person what one word that they can say to you that might just help you in that moment. But you won't know unless you reach out. And the thing about arrogance is so true as well. A friend mentioned that to me once, and it shifted my way of seeing
100%,
things a lot.
100%.
Because I was like, wow. I was like, I am being arrogant, aren't I? Because they're not thinking about me.
100.
But we all see the world through our own lens, right? So we see everything through us, the way we see things. But actually, it's like that person is seeing the world through their lenses too. So they're not thinking about you in that moment. They're just doing their own thing. So don't make things bigger than they need to be. Because people are not
Absolutely.
thinking about you like that.
He actually pictured it. He was like, so you think, as they're serving their food around the dining table, they're talking about you. And he said, get out of here, man.
And it's true. It's true. Okay, so then finally, just before we close, you've done so much over the years already. Like, even in spite of all of life circumstances, you've been able to be resilient, and you've been able to build businesses, build a community interest company, now be a public speaker. What's next? What does the next 12 months look like for Lawrence and beyond?
Continue to grow Happy Toast Education to a point where hopefully, and it's not 12 months, but I don't need to be there running it. Someone else is doing it, because I really want to focus more on the social enterprise part with Just a Guy. And what we're looking to do is partner with businesses to offer internships through us, essentially. Because there's one thing of giving these young people the power skills, but actually they've got them, so what next? So that's kind of my next drive of like, okay, right. If you really are about social mobility, if you really are about giving back as a business, put your money where your mouth is.
Yes, that's good.
Give them a paid internship. We can change our course to make sure, or adapt it to make sure it's fitting some of the criteria that you need. But actually, talent just needs to be given a chance.
Absolutely, that's the thing. That's amazing. That's incredible, and I'll definitely be following closely on that journey.
Oh, and there's one last thing that I'm
Yeah,
definitely. This
sure.
is more from a personal kind of health point of view. I always like to challenge myself physically. From when I've not been able to learning to rewalk. So this next year, I am looking to do a Spartan races. But I'm looking to do all three of them.
What?
It's called a trifecta. So you do 5K. I've done a 10K already, and then you do 21K, which has different obstacle courses as you go through. And the only way you can get them is if you do them all in the same year. So it's called a trifecta. So that's my big goal in next year to try and do.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah,
That's
gonna do
huge.
that. Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Oh, we didn't even talk about your fitness journey on this episode. We're gonna have to get you back on just for you to take us on that journey, because that in itself has been incredible. But no, thank you so much for coming on today, Lauren. And Lawrence, I said Lauren. No, thank you so much for coming on today's episode. Lawrence has been absolutely amazing. Just diving into your story and hearing about all the amazing work that you're doing, both in business and for your community. I guess before you close and before I let you go, any final words of encouragement or anything you want to say to the young people listening, or to their parents that are listening, just in terms of building resilience, or just in general? Any
I think I'm
final
gonna keep it
thoughts?
short and sweet. Is that tomorrow is not promised, so don't hide your talent for no one. Go out and be the best that you can.
Perfect. Mic drop moment. Nothing else to add there. Thank you so much for coming on, Lawrence. It's been absolutely amazing.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.